Opening a restaurant is a challenge. In the sense of the word, it's hard, it's expensive, it's stressful, and a whole lot more. Today's guests are tackling that challenge, of course, but they're also using their new restaurant as a challenge to the industry, to the norms that have been created and the exclusions that have been present in their careers and throughout the industry. They aim to build an experience that serves everyone equally and thoughtfully, with acceptance, balance, and of course, fun.
Yeah, don't forget the fun.
Fun!
Yes, we're excited to have here today founders and partners of HAGS. We have Chef Telly Justice.
Hello.
Hello. And Camille Lindsley. And Telly has been in the industry for 15 years, since you were 18 years old?
16 or so?
16
Yeah.
or so.
Yeah.
Yep, so
It's been a long ride.
And everywhere from anarchist vegan I saw in
Yes.
your resume to
Yeah.
tasting menus at Michelin-starred restaurants here in New York City. And Camille is a certified somm, so we're blessed to be able to taste some wine later. And she's also worked at some very fine dining establishments. And this will be your first restaurant together. And you're centering not only queerness, but fun brand of hospitality that is open to everyone.
Yeah.
So we are so excited to chat with you today.
Welcome.
Yeah, pleased to be here.
Yeah,
Super excited.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, and
Yes.
thanks for, so I will say for the listeners, this is our first show in a new format. So we will be cooking along with Telly as she demos a dish from maybe the opening menu, maybe just a workshopping
We'll
of
see
the
if it
opening
sticks.
menu.
We'll see if it sticks. The mystery.
The mystery. And then Camille will talk us through a beverage pairing a little bit later, and we'll just chat about all awesome things of opening HAGS. So
Right, so if you're listening to us on Heritage Radio Network, then you can also watch the video, and that will be found on YouTube. We'll put that link up, and then we'll also be putting the recipe for today's dish on there, so you don't need to
scurry to write it down.
scurry to write it down when you make it. Just wait, it'll be there.
It'll
Great.
be there. All right, so let's get cooking. What
Let's
are we making
jump
today,
into it.
Chef?
So I'm doing a green tomato dish. We're both ex-Atlantans. We met cooking in restaurants, or myself cooking, you serving in restaurants in Atlanta.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Nice story.
And the green tomato is so representative of a lot of the things that we did down there. I mean, there are a lot of things that I think are quintessential to green tomato dishes. Usually they're fried, and so like a crispy, crunchy, starchy element is classic. And also like they beg for fat. So usually ranch or like sour cream or clabber cream specifically is very important. And we have
Clabber cream?
clabber cream is
Okay.
basically like a strained buttermilk similar to creme fraiche.
Okay.
But clabber cream is like specifically southern. Yeah, it's very acidic, very sharp, about as thick as creme fraiche. We're going to be using creme fraiche because clabber cream is a process, but it's a good facsimile for today.
Will the menu have clabber cream?
It'll have clabber
Potentially?
cream, for sure.
Okay.
It'll definitely have clabber cream. But in this case, I really wanted to showcase a different side of green tomato than a lot of people get to see, which is raw. And we're supposing that this is going to be potentially a first course in our omnivores tasting menu.
So Telly, while you're chopping tomatoes, Camille, can you tell us a little bit about what HAGS is and where you are in the process of opening it?
Yes, so HAGS is a soon-to-be open restaurant in the East Village of New York City, where we are. And we have been working on this project throughout the pandemic, and per usual of all restaurant openings, pandemic or not, it's taken a lot longer than either of us ever thought that it would, but it's a process. And we will be serving queer joy via the format of fine dining. Telly is such a talented chef, and I'm so excited to be working with her. And I truly would never dream to open a restaurant with anybody else.
I feel the same way. You're gonna make
So
me
much
all
love
emotional.
today.
I know, I'm
Valentine's
sorry.
Day, too.
Valentine's Day. Alex is tearing up a little bit. And so you were mentioning that this might be the first course. So it's a tasting menu.
Tasting
and
menu.
Tell us about the format, because I know you want to be approachable and available to all types, and
Mhm.
so that means
Yep.
vegetarians, people with allergies. Tell us about your approach to the menu.
So the way we're looking at it is we're going to offer, I would say, around 5 to 6 courses conceptually, and we're going to have an omnivore side of the tasting menu and a vegan and kind of like allergen aware
Aware,
Yeah.
allergen aware.
menu as well. And I have a ton of experience cooking vegan food, as you
That's
already
your
mentioned,
yes,
right?
love it.
In our
Yep.
anarchist days, our punk rock days. We're still punks, but I have a ton of experience with that. And I have a ton of experience cooking allergen-free food. I come from a family, my mom, who I love dearly, has a ton of allergies. And it's really a struggle for her to like go out and get a good chef-prepared meal. There's a long dialogue involved, and there's elements of trust that are very difficult to navigate. And you have a ton of allergies as well.
If you're not watching and you're just listening, Telly's now marinating green tomatoes with olive oil, vermouth,
No,
salt.
verjus.
Verjus.
Excuse me,
Verjus.
verjus.
Tell us about
And salt,
verjus
that's
because
it.
it's an interesting.
I'll actually let you talk
Yes,
about
actually,
verjus because
talk
you'll
about
sound way
verjus.
smarter
Totally.
than me.
So verjus is just basically unfermented grape juice. Really the main difference between verjus and wine is that wine is fermented, whereas verjus is not. So it's super light and fresh and juicy.
Alcohol content comparable?
None.
None.
Yeah.
No alcohol. Yes.
It smells delicious already. So we just squeeze a little lemon on the.
Squeeze a little lemon. We're gonna let those sit and marinate because the real stumbling block to serving green tomatoes raw is that they're highly acidic, and they have a structure that is kind of unyieldy, which is why most people fry them. It kind of gives them a more supple touch and mouthfeel. But we're gonna achieve that by adding a little salt and acid and letting them sit, absorb that flavor.
We're in kind of a time-sensitive situation today, but normally would you marinate them longer or
This is actually going to be an appropriate amount of
just a quick
marination.
marinade?
Yeah, so if we were at the restaurant right now, I'm kind of doing this exactly the way that I would do it on the line.
Okay.
This part of the process, however, I would probably
Have prepped.
prepped. So right
we
now,
have some olives, right?
yeah.
Tell
So
us.
olives, we're gonna do a little bit of a bread salad, which is something that I really love to eat. Something that I prepare at home very frequently, especially things like ribollita.
I love a ribollita.
I do too. And
Had me
there's-
at bread
Love-
salad.
love
Right, right, exactly.
Kids would love the bread salad since they're right.
What's
So I
that?
feel like our kids would be into the bread
I
salad.
know. It's
Yeah.
like I'm into
It's
a
an
bread
easy
salad.
sell.
It's like a deconstructed sandwich in a different
Yeah.
way. I love it,
Exactly.
and everything gets all
Absolutely.
marinated and soaks up the juice. It's like hello.
Yeah, deconstructed sandwiches definitely.
Definitely. And so one of my favorite things about bread salad preparations is like when they're somewhere in that purgatory of crunchy and soggy, you know?
Right.
It's like such a lovely texture in my opinion. So we're going to build kind of like a little chunky garnish for these marinated croutons, which I'll do next.
Cool.
So right now I'm dicing, kind of like small to medium dicing these Castelvetrano olives.
So where are you guys at in the process? I know that you're working and delayed potentially, and
Yes. So right now we are in the middle of build out. We got really lucky and are going to be occupying the original Momofuku Noodle Bar and Momofuku Co space on
And I
First
love this.
Lot of
Avenue.
I love
history.
this for
Yeah.
y'all for
Yes.
so many reasons.
So much
For
history,
so
yeah.
many reasons.
It's funny actually that the very first time that Telly and I came to New York City together back in 2015, we immediately went to Noodle Bar, just like maybe 3 doors up from where HAGS will be. We didn't even go to the Airbnb yet, so we still like had our luggage and had just gotten into town, and went straight to Noodle Bar. So
This
these-
was when they were already moved to the new space,
Yes,
and
exactly.
it was Co and the current space where you guys,
Correct.
where you all
Yes.
will be.
Correct.
Yeah. Yes. So it's
the space where
definitely
you are, I'm sorry, the space where you are is where Co most recently was.
yes,
The-
exactly.
The original Noodle
The-
Bar,
yes.
right?
The original
Got it.
Noodle Bar, the original Co
Mhm.
before Co went to Exchange Place.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So much movement.
I know.
So
a
much
lot.
movement.
But I think that's a great sign for you all.
Oh,
An-
for
an
sure, that-
empire started there. So-
You could
Definitely.
also argue that that restaurant was sort of the start of high-low
of
cuisine
chef's
in that way.
counter
Yeah.
in a lot
Yeah.
of
People
ways.
embracing a more casual way of eating high quality, well prepared
Absolutely.
food.
Definitely.
I think
Yeah.
it goes without saying that HAGS likely wouldn't exist without the global influence on
Right.
food that company has had. Even though we're like dramatically different and we're
Mhm.
looking to undo a lot of culturalisms that were, not necessarily established there, but prominent there, as is the case with
That was
all
part of the industry at
restaurants.
the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's
And still today too.
And still today.
Mhm.
and still today too. It's definitely like important for us to recognize that we're following in the footsteps of people before us.
Mhm.
For sure.
Mhm.
So, because that space is so iconic, we really felt that it was necessary for us to change the space in a visual way,
Mhm.
and change the way that the dining room is set up too. So we're in the middle of doing a full gut reno of the space.
Exciting.
When did you take the space? When did you take the lease?
So we took the space.
Kelly's snickering.
Sounds
Is
like a
that good or
story.
bad
Yeah.
snicker? I guess we're about to find out.
It's funny actually. I was
A
going through.
beleaguered
I
snicker.
know. I was going through my photos from this time last year, and we had first looked at the space about a year ago and signed the lease in June of 2021
June
Okay.
of 2021.
with permitting and
You're moving pretty fast.
Not
I
bad.
I would feel good about your pace.
Yeah.
If for a gut right now.
Yes.
thank you for saying
Yes.
that.
I mean, we've been doing this show for 3 years. We've seen a lot longer build outs than that.
Oh,
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
When we first were thinking about opening this restaurant, we had talked to some other folks who had opened their own places and had heard stories about it taking 2 years, and we're
2
like,
years,
oh
right.
no,
Yeah.
that won't be us. And
You
here
always
we
think
are
you're
about
going to
a
be
year
the
in.
exception to the
Right.
rule. You always think you're the
I can get it
exception.
done.
Sure.
We're smaller, it's this, it's
seven or
that.
8 months?
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Totally.
Yeah.
Let's check in with Telly. What have
So
we done?
I've added little brunoise of seeded jalapeno here.
Mhm.
It's kind of at the taste level of the chef, how spicy you want to make this.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
for this dish, especially because it's a caviar dish, I want to keep it spiceless, but have that like really nice peppery,
Mhm.
green flavor garden
Mhm.
note. I think it really pulls together the brininess of the olive and the fresh acidity of the green tomatoes. Now over here, I've got these croutons, this green olive loaf from Mel's, which is on the Lower East Side, around the corner from Tillit, and around the corner from where we live.
Mhm.
And I've toasted these low and slow just to get them nice and dried out. And I'm gonna plop them in this caramelized onion broth,
Mm.
which is exactly what it sounds like. I caramelized a bunch of onions and steeped them in water
Mm.
for about an hour or two to really condense that flavor. And then married that with some raw onion juice
Mhm.
and reduced it. So it's got all kinds of different levels of onion smell and flavor. You can
Onion
probably
juice.
smell it from where you're sitting right
I,
now.
I smell I smell the pepper too, like the
Mhm.
jalapeno smells, like you said. Garden.
Totally. So what we're doing is we're just kind of taking these really thirsty croutons and soaking them up so we can get that nice gushy crouton for bread salad. So just a brief dunk. They absorb really quickly. And this is a technique I actually stole from Jeremiah Stone from Contra,
You
where I
didn't
used to work.
steal, you learned it while you were.
I hope
Thank
you'll
you,
be pleased to see
Jeremiah,
me
for
doing
that.
this.
Yeah.
I'm totally putting as much thought into this as I did when I was doing it at your restaurant, I promise.
Yes.
We're just going to let this sit here for a second and kind of soak.
Mm-hmm.
That residual liquid that's just kind of like all over it is going to penetrate to the center. And when we're getting closer to plate up, I'm going to pop it in the oven so that they get warm and get a little crust on the outside again.
Mhm.
Love it.
Doesn't take much time.
A textural dream, which I feel like
Yes.
croutons sometimes are texturally just
Yeah.
painful.
Painful,
Right?
like literally,
Also
like
the
I
size
like
is
my, I think I wrote
The
the
size is
yeah.
so important.
The size
And
is
I
important,
also
yeah.
find that like a well done crouton, meaning like cooked all the way through,
Yeah.
it's really hard to get on your fork.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's-
So like,
yeah.
you
We
gotta
talk
have
about this all
a
the time.
mid-rare
We get-
crouton.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
Totally.
perfect.
Or like we hate it when there's like food that isn't the appropriate size for a fork that's like not meant to be cut either. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah,
Totally.
There's a whole product.
It's like big
mashed
pieces
there.
of something in soup. It drives me nuts.
Yes,
If you fill
definitely.
the spoon, it doesn't go in the soup.
Yeah, I don't want to put a knife into
At least
a
in my
bowl.
world,
Like,
yeah.
it's just not what I really want to do.
Right.
And then so our last little component that I'm going to get ready here is that creme fraiche or clabber cream sauce that I was talking about. We're going to use a little bit of this tahini. Brain fart.
Okay.
And this right here is an ingredient that I prepped ahead. It's red endive that I've caramelized in brown butter with a little bit of sorghum syrup. Another classic Southern ingredient that is very near and dear to my heart. It's almost like molasses-y. It's got this umami, the sweetness, a touch of acidity, and it's one of those ingredients where you're like, what is that? What am I tasting? Which I love.
If you're not seeing it, it's like this super creamy puree situation. How is it so creamy? Just from the butter?
So it's butter and emulsified with a little bit of xanthan gum,
Got
so
it.
that all of that fat really like gets in there and incorporates well.
And so I know we mentioned there's going to be a tasting menu, and I know it being affordable was also something that's important to you all. So tell us about how you're pricing the menu, what that means for your business model.
It's an interesting balance. There are a lot of things to consider. I mean, that's the case with all restaurant models.
Right.
It's such a delicate business that like it's often, I don't know, a little magical how we end up with the mathematics that we believe will work.
It's a bit of a like divination process, I feel
Definitely.
like. I think that part of the reason why we feel justified for asking for the amount of money for our experience is, one, first of all, we're going to be tipless, which already I feel like helps with sort of the sticker shock of sometimes when you go to a tasting menu restaurant, you think all about how like, oh, you know, the menu is only X number of dollars, pairings are this much, and then you sort of forget that there's an extra 20% added at the end of the day for all of that. So
Do you have a sticker price? Is that something that's decided for your model?
We're working on it. We're trying to keep it as like in the low like 100s. It is one of these reverse engineering situations where it's like, okay, so a $100 tasting menu with a 20% tip included would be $120. So that roots us at like a comparable experience at another restaurant that would cost $100. We're looking at charging $120, and it's a wash in the end. It's on us to kind of be the educators for the experience that like this price is what you're paying, period.
Right.
People like that, and honest, I mean, there's been so many restaurants have gone tipless, have experimented with it, and I think consumers now, as long as they know in advance, I think consumers are adaptable to whatever you price something at. Honestly, people need to be paying for food so that everybody can make a living wage.
Yeah, and that's definitely part of the reason why we wanted to go with a set menu format in the first place, is that it's really hard to sort of anticipate what your sales will be when you have the chaoticness of a la carte. You know, it's sort of really
I think
changes
there's also a
at
lot
the
of
whims
sustainability built in with having
for
a set menu.
sure,
So you're
absolutely.
not dealing with all this food waste and
Exactly.
Yeah,
And,
so we definitely are looking to be closed 2 days a week, partially for our own sanity.
Yes, smart. Good
But
Thank you.
so looking to be closed on Mondays and Tuesdays really sort of allows us to take advantage of Sunday in a way that we're both really excited about. We're going to be doing Pay What You Can Sundays, which is really sort of our way to make HAGS be really truly a place where you can come, whether you can afford a tasting menu or not.
And it'll be the exact same menu.
It'll be a different menu. It'll sort of depend on honestly what we feel like doing that day. Maybe we want to have a guest chef come in, maybe someone who works in the kitchen or really works anywhere in HAGS wants to like cook a family recipe. Maybe we have, you know, a bunch of leftover product that we decide to utilize that might not make it the 2 days that we're closed. So it's really our way of engineering both just sort of like a fun way to end the week, end the work week, a fun way to include people who wouldn't be able to afford even a modestly priced tasting menu. Is still a tasting menu at the end of the day. It's still a luxury experience.
How do you how do you determine that? How do you determine that the person comes as someone that's deserving, or do you care? Does it not matter?
We're in no
Yeah.
position to judge. You know,
Sure.
Yeah.
it's
Everybody deserves free food.
Yeah,
Yeah.
everybody.
Even if it's one day a week, you know.
Exactly, totally.
So that's something that we really think a lot
And will
about.
Sunday be reservation as well?
No, so
Sunday will be
to make
walk-in
it
only.
truly democratic, it's going to be first come, first serve.
That makes sense.
And then otherwise it'll be reservation. So tell everybody how many seats you all have. 'Cause
So
it's-
20 seats. We'll have 15 in the dining room, 5 at the bar.
and how
Very
many,
cozy.
very very cozy. Right, everybody's ready to be cozy again.
Yeah.
post-pandemic.
What's your staffing projections for front and back?
Oh, it's going to be very
Or is it
small.
the two of you?
Just the two of us. Yeah. That sounds
That's really
great.
how
Super
the-
sustainable.
The
Yeah.
project started was like, how small can we make this?
Right.
Truly. And we've tried to keep
Because
it
of
as small as
finances or
possible.
because of concept or
Both.
For a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, we also just have this, I don't know, we have an affinity for smallness generally.
okay.
Mhm.
And we were really inspired by other jewel box places. Like, we love Prune,
Yeah.
we love
Sorry,
Zizi's
people.
Clam Bar.
Yeah.
We love Amoria Margot, that original location, when it was just like 12 bar stools or whatever.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
Really
also, Momofuku Co.
Yeah.
really trailblazed that in a lot of ways. And so we wanted to have that like New York jewel box feeling that
It's
is
always so
very.
much better to have a small space
I agree.
Right.
than a big line
Yeah.
than a big space that you can't fill up.
Right.
It
Nothing
totally
creating
kills a
demand,
party
it's
like
so
an
simple.
empty room.
Nothing
Oh,
kills the
100%.
vibe like an empty
God.
room. Totally.
It's
you can
so
always do a
true.
big one
So
for the
true.
next one
Mhm.
And
if
then
you feel like it fits what you're doing, you know?
Right.
and
Truly.
so for the tasting menu, so the other 4 nights will be reservations.
Yes.
Yes.
And those, and how many turns will you? Your dinner only or lunch
Mhm.
and
Dinner
Dinner
only.
only. We're hoping to do at least 2 turns a night, 2.5 probably.
So you're closed Monday, Tuesday,
Mhm.
and then
And so you'll have one
Wednesday
staff
through Saturday.
for the
Yep,
for the
Exactly.
5 days.
Exactly. Yeah, that also keeping the schedule be those days really does allow us to keep the staff small. In terms of number of staff, it's going to be fewer than 10 people, Telly and I included. And part of the reason why we wanted to keep it small is not just because of the size of the restaurant, but we also feel really passionate about sharing the skills that we've learned in our years of cooking, both in fine dining, but also doing things like Food Not Bombs, which are, I feel like, very much sort of politically minded.
Wait,
foods.
say that
Wait,
again?
say that again?
Food Nut Bums?
Food Not Bombs. So Food Not Bombs is a non-hierarchical collective that's been around for a couple of decades. That basically there are chapters all over the world. Folks gather, prepare meals, and distribute them for free.
Mhm. Usually in parks and like city centers and stuff
Mhm.
like that. And it's as much a social gathering, and it's about fun and like inclusivity, community building, as it is about dealing with food insecurity, which is such an important topic right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I think that we as restaurateurs, especially in New York City, have a bit of a responsibility to think about it, even if like our models aren't ready to. I mean, it's the middle of the pandemic, so there is a leniency to a lot of restaurant models right now. But I think that if you think about food insecurity and start imagining a future where that's built into your restaurant models, that can be a really wonderful
One
thing.
step at a time. No,
One
I
step
mean,
at a time.
that's how we feel.
There's
though.
also plenty of like ancillary businesses that handle food waste, like our
We had
our guest last week.
rethink. Yeah, we had rethink
Oh,
on.
cool.
I will connect you with them because I actually they sort of have seen this, that restaurateurs want to be on this journey where they are thinking about food insecurity and what it means either to give back to their immediate community or other communities within their city, but don't have like the means to also be a nonprofit. So they're trying to sort of solve for that.
Most definitely.
Which I love.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
So let's check in, Telly.
Cool.
So what's in this?
So right
Yeah.
now, we are letting these jalapenos and Castelvetrano olives sit with some chives, salt, a little squeeze of lemon, a little bit of olive oil. Super simple. We don't want to take away, again, from the caviar and complicate the flavor profile too much. because there's nothing sadder than eating caviar and not getting to taste
Mhm.
it.
Tasting it.
You know, I feel like that's usually a trick
Nothing
for bad
sadder.
quality
Yeah.
caviar.
Oh, no.
And especially like in a place that we feel orients to queer folks and people that aren't often included in fine dining, we want you to taste the best. It's
Mhm.
important that you
Mhm.
like really experience.
And we have really good caviar right now. Definitely want to shout out our neighbors, 63 Clinton, for hooking us up with a lot of Kaluga caviar for this. So
Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
Thank you. So, and tell us a little bit about, what you just touched on queer folks not having, necessarily have been introduced to some of the fine dining elements, being
Mhm.
left out of the kitchen. And I know that's an important part of your business and the message that you're bringing.
Definitely.
Tell us a little bit how you're centering.
So it really started as this idea of our relationship to the work and the industry, and the fact that we've not had an opportunity, at least in the way that we've felt and internalized the work, welcome and invited to really be ourselves in the ways that other people have been invited to be themselves at work. And that really has an impact on the work that you put out, especially as you become a chef and a sommelier, and people are asking you about yourself and your journey. And it was feeling more and more like it was important to build a space where we could be honest and authentic and really speak to the experiences that we had, that not all of were negative, but a lot were. And we want to envision a place where we can call out to a young cook like myself, and say, this is a place to build your resume, this is a place to feel comfortable. And in the process of figuring out how to invite folks like ourselves to the kitchen, we started talking about how to invite folks like ourselves to the dining room and what that looks like and how you effectively do that. I don't think that there are many spaces where we're just like simply not permitted to go, but there aren't a lot of places where we're explicitly invited to go, and that makes a big difference, like emotionally.
Right, there's Mimi's, I think, was a pioneer.
Yes.
Mimi's
Yeah.
Center in that, but it's since that space has been gone, it's true. It's like there's pop-ups that are specifically like
For sure.
Here.
There's definitely a queer food renaissance happening. However, we didn't see anyone really going for pioneering queer food in a luxury space.
Yeah, this is the first.
Yeah.
How do you get cis restaurant owners to understand that and be more inclusive and foster, a safe space?
Well, I think it's, really lovely that y'all have invited us to do this sort of thing, and any chance we get a chance to like really speak to the why of us doing this, because I do believe that a lot of people look at our story, look at our concept and go, why? What's the
Yeah.
point?
Right.
Is this just tokenism? Is this just seizing a cultural moment? And there are elements of that seep in, and we can't be controlling of that necessarily. But the more we get to put our voices out and say why HAGS is important to us, why we felt that we needed to do this, it becomes educational to other restaurateurs that are looking to do something similar, even if it's just inviting us, which I think is a lovely goal to have.
Yeah.
All right, I am about to plate up,
All right.
and this dish was really that simple. Very easy to execute while talking to your friends in a kitchen.
Yes.
So I've added the toasted breadcrumbs, which are now kind of like al dente, we could say. And they're marinating in with this very briefly. And I'm just going to spoon this kind of casually and rustically onto the plate. I really like messy food. I think messy food is super delicious food. And while that's not necessarily the fine dining aesthetic, there has to be some kind of like element of sloppiness, just so that like we remind ourselves of what is fun and good about food. So we're gonna put that there. Bring our marinated tomatoes, which are now draining. We don't want them to be sloppy wet on the plate necessarily.
I think the casual plate makes you like feel more comfortable eating it. too.
Totally.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel intimidated to eat something when it's
Too precious.
I
Yeah.
totally agree.
You're
Regardless
also-
of how delicious it is, it's
Definitely.
We actually had iterations of this dish initially that were like way more focused and like solid looking and traditional fine dining-esque. And they're not as like, it wasn't as intuitive to eat it wasn't as like delicious looking,
Right.
and
The form didn't serve the dish as well. I also think that Telly is being very modest right now. Her plating style is definitely, I feel like, more abstract. I think messy is.
But still calculated.
Right? Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
It's like the outfit
It's-
that like looks
For
casual
sure.
and rock
Casual.
star, but you like
Right.
Definitely.
clearly
You
picked
put-
out each piece.
right.
There is
There's purpose.
reason.
Yeah.
Yes.
yeah, there's form to the formless, I think, sometimes.
So what's in our squeeze box? So Telly's
So
squeezing.
this is the clabber cream. We're just gonna say, let's call
Right.
it clabber cream.
Sorry, creme fraiche.
With creme fraiche.
That's with the endive.
with the
puree
endive,
mixed in, yeah.
roasted endive puree, and a touch of the tahini.
And it's a beautiful color. It's like a really
beautiful.
nice, like, yeah.
I think so.
Rosy,
Yeah.
And basically, what we're gonna do is we're just gonna cover this up with these little tendrils of now like kind of wispy green tomato.
And the green tomato, it was marinated for about, 20 minutes just now?
I would
Yeah.
say so, yeah. As you can see, like the texture and structure of the tomatoes has broken down
It's not
significantly.
so firm
Right.
from the
Much
marinade. Yep.
easier
Yeah.
to kind
It's
of pick
still
up
much
on your
well,
A
form.
little bit of crispiness. Yeah.
Yeah.
Seasonality, I imagine, will play a role.
Oh, big
Do we
time.
have an idea? I hate to put a date
Oh,
on
of
you guys,
when?
but do we have an idea of when
We're hoping
HAGS will be opening?
hoping for April.
April. Oh, soon.
Not too
Okay.
far away.
Not too far away.
All right, so
So-
the green tomatoes will still be around. and-
Yes.
We're hoping so, yeah. This dish is definitely like planned with an April opening in mind.
Okay.
Okay.
General contractors, if you hear this.
Do you hear this? So tell us about, we talked a little bit when you all first arrived about, budgets and
Mhm.
funding and all those kind of good things. And I know we have a stressful meeting with a contractor tomorrow. So tell us what's happening with where you are in terms of build out and how that process has been going.
So right now we're in the final stages of what's called rough-in, which basically is all of the stuff that lives in the walls. So plumbing, electrical, all of the really like unsexy
The unsexy stuff. But
But
that's very important.
meanwhile, we're
Right.
also
The
getting
really
to
important stuff.
exactly the super important stuff. We're also getting to sort of do the fun things of the FF&E, the finishes, furniture, and equipment, all the while. So we're getting to like look at the pretty tiles and tables and materials that will be used in the finishes. But right now it's like there are no real walls up in the space, but we can sort of see what the floor plan will look like with like studs in place right now, which is very exciting.
That is exciting. I know you guys did. Crowdsourcing for a portion of it. Tell us
Tell us
a little
about
bit about
funding.
how you raised money. Was it self-funded?
So the crowdfunding was awesome and definitely I feel like got us like a good head start.
Is it still open, the crowdfunding?
It is still open.
Do you want to
What
tell everybody
platform
where
is
it
it?
is?
Yeah,
Yep.
let
Sure,
people
so
know.
it's on GoFundMe. I'll send y'all the URL later. I can't remember. off the top
Just
of
if
my
you go to
head, but-
GoFundMe, you can
Yeah,
put in
you can-
HAGS
yeah.
if you do want to contribute anything.
Exactly. But the rest, it's so expensive to open a restaurant. Crowdfunding alone won't really get you very far. It'll get you into trouble if anything. But we've been really lucky to have an investor who was a regular at where I worked before COVID and has been like super supportive of us and is really the one who's helping us make it happen in a financial way.
He's been fantastic.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm sorry. How did you find this person? This
He was
was
he was a regular at Aldo's Wine Bar, the place where I was working before the pandemic.
amazing.
So
And
yeah.
you stayed in touch with it. So this is
Mhm.
like we talk about network all the time on this show, and this is
Yes.
but I think you're the first one to have a regular fund your restaurant. So
I mean, you
You
never
just-
know
you
when
just
someone
never
walks
know.
into your restaurant who that person is,
Mhm.
what kind of role they might potentially play in your life.
yeah.
Did you guys have a relationship already, and you went back to him with the plan, or you?
So we kind of stayed in contact throughout the pandemic. We bonded over our love of Burgundy, specifically Domaine Moulin Bourg, which is like definitely one of my favorite producers, one of his favorite producers as
I
well.
imagine it'll be on the menu.
Yes, for sure. But yeah, I helped consult him on some of his cellars at his vacation home, and just had sort of mentioned that oh, the wine bar is back open, but I'm not going back. We're trying to open our own place, and he offered to invest. So
Amazing.
And you
Pretty-
only
pretty
needed the one
lucky.
investor to fund.
yes,
And
also
yeah,
very lucky.
that's
Thankfully,
so
luckily,
awesome.
because
Yeah.
because of his generosity, which we're very fortunate
Mhm.
about. Yeah, but it does speak to the importance of like if you have a dream and you feel like you're ready,
Mhm.
like
Talk to people.
speak about it, talk to
Yeah.
people,
Mhm.
spread the word,
Mhm.
even if it feels fantastical and crazy and improbable. Like we never thought that we'd be doing this, but we talked about it. We told strangers.
Mhm.
We
If you don't tell
got the
anybody.
word out, and
Yeah.
that's how you make these things happen for yourself.
And it's funny. It's actually the CEO from Rethink who was on last week. He also told somebody he was working for who was
Mhm.
very high net worth
Mhm.
his dream too and got funded. So
That's
like
awesome.
and this is you are the first two that we've had on the show that this has happened for. So I think it's an amazing story to share, and you shouldn't be afraid, like you said, to
Yeah, no,
tell
it's-
every single person,
it's
I want to
great.
do this. We're doing this.
Yeah.
You just never know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah.
done with my
You
plating.
have a dish.
have a dish.
We have a finished
Oh my god, I'm
dish.
gonna take a photo because it's
Um, any caviar heads out there, this is Kaluga caviar. It's very nice stuff. And I am a big proponent of if you're going to do a caviar dish, give people caviar. Let them
Don't
taste it.
skimp on the caviar.
Don't skimp on it. And I also am a big fan of incorporating caviar into dishes rather than having it in a little ramekin off to the side.
It's a
There are-
component, not a garnish.
right.
Yeah,
right.
exactly. And I think it shows an intimacy with tasting caviar as a chef to be able to include it and incorporate it into a dish thoughtfully that makes it work and puts it into a context other than just look at this luxury ingredients.
Right.
It is a luxury ingredient, but it's a luxury ingredient because it tastes luxurious,
Mhm.
and we love to showcase things in that way. But here we are.
Cool.
Wait, should we take a quick break
Yeah, bring
and
this
then
up to
we'll?
the camera just so that the camera
Yeah.
gets a nice.
All right, so we're back and we're gonna finish our conversation with Telly and Camille, and we're gonna taste some wine that Camille is pairing. So, will there be a beverage pairing with
Yes,
the? Okay,
yes,
so tell us
definitely.
everything. Tell us the things.
There will be pairings offered for the menu. I love to pair with Telly's food, and I think that oftentimes a sort of stumbling block with a lot of somms and chefs is they don't get to spend a lot of time together. However,
I
we
never thought
eat
about that.
we eat almost every single meal together, so I feel like we have a pretty good idea of what each other's palates are like.
Yeah,
Is it
we're
normally that the chef creates and then the som sort of has to just deal with
Scrambles
whatever happens?
to put something together.
So do you
Yes.
guys change that a little bit? Do you influence what Telly's making
Sure,
sometimes?
definitely. Sometimes I'll say like, "Hey, there's this one I would really love. Could you like maybe make a dish around this?"
Make something.
and I love the challenge. It's
Yeah.
actually really
Sure.
fun to have a box to play in.
Mhm.
And we get to some pretty cool combos through the meat grinder of that process.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I never thought about that. That's so interesting.
Yeah, I definitely feel very fortunate to be able to work with such a great chef, but also to be able to pair with Telly's food, which you'll taste for yourself.
Yeah.
But the wine that we have today is a wine that I was really excited to find for this dish in particular. It's a Gruner Veltliner from a couple of queer winemakers actually out in the Santa Rita Hills near Santa Barbara in California. So Camille's to Dreams is the name of the winery. Camille's is Catalan for, I'm so sorry, I'm just blanking on what it is. Oh, it's Catalan for path.
Oh.
Okay. Aw,
So
okay, cute. Pathways.
the two winemakers, they actually met working in California and did a little stint making wine together in Catalan, where Maria, one of the winemakers, is from. Tara Gomez, the other pair of the two, is the brains behind Kita Winery. So they founded this winery back in 2017. Let me double check on that.
We'll fact check later.
Yes, we'll fact check later. But this is a Gruner Veltliner, so a grape that's not super widely planted in Santa Barbara. It's a lot of Pinot Noir and Chardonnay out there, both grapes which I love. But Gruner Veltliner, I think, is such an exciting grape varietal to pair with green tomatoes.
Mhm.
Something that's also kind of fun with caviar. It's definitely not like a traditional pairing. You know, people think about vodka or champagne with caviar,
right.
which all of which are delicious and excellent, and I love
Delightful.
to enjoy as well. But this is a wine that has like, I think, great savoriness. It pairs wonderfully with the salinity, both from the caviar and from the olives. So super like fresh, zesty, a little bit savory. You get that classic Gruner white pepper. But
Cheers.
let's see how
Cheers.
it is.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Hope it pairs well with Perrier.
It's actually
Not
lovely
sponsored
with
by
Perrier.
Yes.
That's nice.
Mm.
I love an excuse to drink.
You
out
mentioned
every
that
time
the winemakers were queer. Are there other partners, providers that you've been able to seek out that
It's
fit into
hard
what
to
you're doing?
find a lot of other queer winemakers. We're out there. Not me. I'm not a queer winemaker.
I'm
but
sure there are.
But you're a queer
Perhaps.
sommelier,
Yes,
which is
yeah.
also
yeah,
not-
it's definitely like I feel like there is a lot more just sort of like attention being paid to queer winemakers. We hope to get our hands on as much queer wine as possible.
Mhm.
I would imagine too that with your project progressing, that people will reach out to you.
I'm
Yeah.
sure.
Definitely, yeah.
Hope so.
We've made a couple.
DM
of,
them
Yes.
if you're
Yes,
listening, or if you
please.
know other
And
queer
again, opening that door
winemakers.
and
Yes.
making it welcome,
Yeah,
making
yeah,
people
for
feel
sure.
welcome to,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
to
Yeah,
talk about what they're doing and who they are. And
for sure.
I'm gonna try this.
Yeah,
one.
let's jump
I'm
in.
gonna jump in. All right.
Please.
yes, I will.
We
I
are
already snapped.
We are
I will.
also hoping to have some non-alcoholic options as well.
was
Hoping
gonna
to
ask
get
if
my
you're
hands
gonna
on
do-
some of the Yes Folk kombuchas, which are excellent. Like a nice effervescent tea forward dish or a beverage would be excellent with this as well.
Oh my gosh, so good.
Complements a lot of the
Very
sort of greenness.
I'm from the south as well,
Oh,
from
great.
New Orleans.
We
And
met
Jane.
working there.
Oh,
Two lanes,
I
we
love
definitely
New
know.
Orleans.
Southern food, and I have a very different idea of what green
Delicious.
tomatoes are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you said, they're
Fried,
cornmeal fried,
Mhm.
stacked, usually dumped with shrimp romaine on top, which is amazing.
which is a
Totally,
great way
which
to do
is-
it.
But this is very interesting and
It's so
and
fresh.
not at all what I
Mhm.
expected.
So fresh, so
And
light.
you're right, you don't get nearly as much of the acidity
Mhm.
Mhm.
that you think of from eating a raw green tomato.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And the caviar is like perfect with it.
I think that,
Yeah.
like, especially when you have such a brief
Mm.
tasting menu as ours, it gives you this opportunity to, like, showcase the things that you're very intimately
Mhm.
used to working with and the things that you really, really care about. And so for me, this dish is a lot to do with, like, giving ourselves luxury, which is, showcased through purveying this great caviar, but also, like, through the intimacy of working with an ingredient like green tomatoes that speaks to our story
Mhm.
and our meeting and our running restaurants in the South together. And that's so important to us.
Y'all are so
This
cute.
stuff is delicious.
We just coming off Valentine's Day. Yeah.
This is really good.
Alex is
You can
gonna
have
keep
that.
that
Yeah,
squeeze bottle. Cool. Let's do a little lightning. We like to ask the same questions
Mhm.
to our guests.
My question's in front of
I
me.
know, but normally it's most ordered dish on the menu is where we start. But that
This
isn't.
one.
This one. So far, it's
One
this
other
one.
so far,
This
we're good.
one.
But you're gonna do the menu differently. So you're thinking. So I know we talked a little bit before that you're in the process of hiring.
Mhm.
So, well, tell us average number of courses that will be on the menu.
Totally. So it'll be kind of like, I like to say 5 to 6 courses, because a lot of our concept is driven by our shared past of going to potlucks and having dinner parties and
Mhm.
picnics and stuff. The pleasure of eating that kind of food is that, like, there are moments where things come together.
Mhm.
There's almost like a blurring of lines between courses. And so it'll be hard to say, like, this is exactly 6 courses. It might feel like a little bit more, but we're rooting ourselves in, like, a classic 5 to 6 course structure.
You've talked about a little bit about Southern cooking. I know you worked at Contra.
Yeah.
If you had to, like, quantify this as a regional type of cuisine, is there anything that you would come up with? Is it French? Is it Is there an influence?
I would
somewhere?
say that it's going to be heavily rooted in Southern cuisine, mostly
Oh.
because it's the ingredients that we know and love, and they're the things that I most intimately, the things I've most intimately worked with in my career. I want to bring that up here, but we're really pushing to have dishes that we've never done in the past.
Right.
So it's a very, very, very loose interpretation of Southern.
Well, yeah, you might say this is Southern, but I don't think most Southern people.
No.
No,
Yeah,
I
we
don't
look
think
at that and
so.
say,
Yeah,
oh, my grandma used to make this.
Yeah. And then what about for wines? Are you specific region, or are you thinking globally?
It's definitely going to be on the more global side. I feel like a bit of a frustration of the sort of wine world, almost wanting wine lists to be pigeonholed into like either you're in the natural wine sort of camp, or you're in the more classic style. And there's so much wine that falls between that. Like I think that if I were to blind taste this, I might not say that it was Austrian, but I would definitely be like, this tastes like a pretty classic style Gruner. However, it is definitely natural wine. So, it's also fun to sort of queer the idea of like what a pairing is. Wine's not always the answer. Sometimes a beer is the best thing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Sometimes vermouth is. Sometimes it's a Madeira.
Yeah.
I think that there's so much more other than just wine that is great with food.
And will there be alcohol on the, or is it beer and wine only?
So beer and wine only.
Yep.
We
Which
are
is
in the
great.
East Village amongst so many of the world's best
The
cocktail
best
bars.
cocktail
So,
bars.
yeah.
And our back bar is very small. Not a whole lot of room
Yep.
for a full bar back there.
Right.
You guys are hopefully 2 months out from opening.
Yeah.
What was your biggest to date oh shit moment in
God,
construction and
probably
permitting? Where-
I would say our biggest oh shit moment was our first budget meeting with our general contractor. That's when we
Tomorrow's the second oh shit
Yes,
moment.
yeah. That's when we sat down and really looked at the hard numbers. We got like a very long line item of costs and subcontractors, and we were like, oh, so we're like really doing this now. Like,
Yeah.
How different was your projections versus the GCs?
it's COVID,
I
it's
2 times,
COVID.
3 times, 50 grand.
We're working with some really lovely contractors that are
Yeah.
super talented and definitely have our best interest in mind. They have been so flexible with us, and they work their butts off to make it.
We hope they're watching or listening.
Yes, definitely.
We're really buttering them up.
They're fantastic, but the reality with COVID is that like there are just certain things that you can't get around, and one of them is that restaurant opening budgets are double what they used to
Wow.
be. So even for a small restaurant, it's been a process of going back to the well and trying to figure out more fundraising to get this done, and ways to negotiate with subcontractors and mitigating the supply chain issues.
Yeah.
If I ever hear the word supply chain again
You
in my
and me
life,
both. You
I'm
and me
going to
both.
scream.
I know.
Truly. And there's so many like strange sort of unintended consequences of the ways in which restaurants have had to adapt. For example, the price of lumber has skyrocketed because folks all tried to build outdoor dining.
Mhm.
Right.
And there's labor
Right,
shortages
yeah,
with
right.
lumber harvesting as well. So it's like on
Right.
both sides.
There's such a
Right,
crazy
the
cause,
demand
like,
for it,
yeah,
right.
cause and effect of.
The streetery is
Are there things
right.
that you guys are able to do DIY style to save on budget? Is that not your forte? Is it not? interest
Not
or-
on much. There's also some legalities in terms of like what we can DIY
Oh, really?
and
With New York City?
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
for
Oh,
sure.
And
OSHA
I
guidelines.
mean, I don't want you guys doing like electric back there, but
Yeah.
I mean, there will definitely be, especially in finishes, there will be plenty of moments when we can get in there.
Right.
We're right now in the process of like electrical and plumbing, which
Right.
is
You
not
don't
our
wanna
Yeah,
mess
yeah,
that
yeah,
shit
no.
up. Yeah.
and we don't want to mess it up. So we haven't gotten in there significantly yet. But the other side of the conversation is that like as the concept that we are and as the people that we are, we're going to be hyper scrutinized. And it's, for both good reasons and bad reasons. And so we're really, really trying to make sure that we do everything above board, get all the permits,
Right.
do all the work legally and go through the systems so that like
There's-
we don't have to deal with shutting down or stopping
Mhm.
construction prematurely.
Mhm.
Because our main concern is being a business where We can provide employment to people uninterruptedly.
Yeah.
We want to make good
Gainful
decisions from the
and
beginning.
sustainable.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes, if we're closing down because we didn't get this or that permit, that's just going to be a disruption in the lived quality of life for our employees, which is something we think about.
And the permitting process has been okay so far. Has that been disrupted because of COVID?
Hasn't been terrible, honestly.
Yeah.
We've gotten really lucky, knock on wood.
Having the expediter is an absolute
Yeah.
must.
Crucial.
Yep.
For sure.
And what about in liquor license? You already have the beer. Were you able to be grandfathered into the previous beer and wine
No,
license?
so
or that's
so the way that actually legally works is you have to purchase the LLC of the previous tenant, which we
Sometimes
can't-
people
yeah,
like to do.
Yeah, for sure.
It's usually wrapped up in what's called key money when you
Right.
buy another person's
Right.
business. But Momofuku,
I don't think it's for.
They don't
wanna sell their
is not
LLC
for
to
sale.
us.
yeah, I would imagine that. They're like, we're a multinational corporation.
Yeah, I don't know if we can afford it either.
I don't even know that they're an LLC anymore at this point, so it's
Yeah.
complicated.
Right. It's
So you've already secured the liquor license, or you're
It
going through
is.
the process?
I just talked to the SLA yesterday,
All
and they
right.
said you're in the last half of waiting for it, but we got the attorney certified expedited. That's in air quotes.
Yeah.
So, we filed that pretty early on, knowing that that is oftentimes something that holds folks up.
Sure.
Yeah.
So hopefully
Good.
it'll be.
That's great.
It should, knock on wood, be there in time.
We're knocking on so much wood these
Yeah,
days.
so much wood.
A lot of wood knocking.
Very
Yeah.
superstitious. I'm not walking under any ladders.
Yeah.
And our last question that we like to ask everybody is best business resource.
Best business resources.
Person, a book, a magazine, a website, whatever.
I'm gonna name a person.
Mm-hmm.
For us, I don't think that we would have been able to do any of this and keep it on track without our shock of the century real estate agent.
Yes.
What?
Yeah.
No restaurant owner will ever say their real estate agent was the behind the scenes
Yeah.
superpower. But our real estate agent, her name is Marissa Simpkins.
She.
Absolute
Yeah.
dynamo real estate agent. She really advocated for us. She went to bat for us so much and believed in the project. Put us in contact with our architect and designer, carpenter and mason, who is super fantastic, as well as our general contractors. And she still checks in with us all the time.
Mhm.
It's like
Wow.
She lets us know what our neighbors are wanting to charge for rent.
Oh.
She,
Yeah,
she
yeah.
sends us other listings. Which
She's
She believes in you. That's how
She's really
she's
trying
like
to
ready
get-
for restaurant number 2. You're like, what's
Yes.
this?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's so rare to find a real estate agent with the integrity that she has. She is just does not tolerate any of the BS that I feel like is so rampant.
Mhm.
A lot of other real estate agents that we saw would just, they'll say anything.
Yeah. And she
which
cuts through that with a knife,
Yeah.
just like
Very no
an
nonsense.
advocate for small business owners in a
She
very meaningful way.
Had
I'm
a
sure you'll get
background
some
in
DMs from New York City people.
Oh, for
about
sure,
that.
for
This
sure.
is an opening
Any
soon
business
first.
that sends her way, we will gladly send it. We looked at spaces for probably 9 months
Wow.
before we settled on the space.
She
and
never got tired of our diva-ness.
It's like we need to have her on the show.
Yeah.
I know, yeah.
You should
truly.
talk to her. She's fantastic.
She really is. Definitely.
Exciting.
I would say my planner. My planner
Oh yeah,
has,
just getting a good planner is
yeah,
smart.
like literally like a
truly,
physical,
yeah, my
like-
physical, yeah, like I am somebody who
I need to
is
write down.
honestly a little forgetful, and if I don't write something down, then it just having something I'll write it down, externalize it from my brain, and let myself move on to whatever is next.
Totally.
Are you
It's a
using a
must.
smart plan? Is it an electric?
No, it's like
an OG.
which I feel like
Analog.
I need to
Analog.
update eventually. 'cause
No,
it's-
I'm with you on the
If I were
analog.
to lose that book, it would be a
be
disaster.
over.
Yeah. Yes.
Cool. This has been awesome. I think we can say that our first video podcast was a
But
success.
thank you for doing this. It was
Right.
so.
Yeah.
This
We
was
had so much
This
fun.
is so
So
fun.
much.
And we're
Um,
very excited to see
yeah, can't wait.
HAGS come about in the next few months.
We cannot. We'll be there. We will be there.
Yeah.
Thank
Tasting
you.
menu.
Can't wait to feed y'all.
Yeah. Thank you.
just did.
Yeah.
How do we
Again.
find you on social and online?
HAGS _ NYC on Instagram.
We haven't branched out to TikTok yet. We're still learning the dance moves.
Yes.
Still practicing, choreographing.
We've got the millennial learning curve.
Yeah.
Like, God, I feel like it takes so long to make one of these videos.
It's so forever.
And just a reminder for our listeners that you're also still raising on your GoFundMe,
Yes.
and you can search HAGS, HAGS.
Mhm.
And then you can find us at We Are Opening Soon and at TILIT NYC.
And this will be posted on YouTube and on all the podcasting apps. So,
Yeah.
Thank you all for being here.
Thanks,
This was so much
guys.
fun.
Thanks so much
Thanks
for
for
having
having
us.
us.
Thank y'all.
It was a
Thank you.
treat. Thank you.